This video examines the case of Iraqi Chaldean Catholics, a targeted religious minority, focusing on enforcement actions, subsequent litigation, and the resulting community trauma. The deportation of Iraqi Chaldean Catholics in metropolitan Detroit highlights the intersection of immigration policy, geopolitics, and religious persecution. We will discuss the mass arrests, the role of religion in high-risk classification, and the landmark Hamama versus Adducci case. Chaldean Catholics are Eastern Rite Catholics and an indigenous Christian group from northern Iraq, using Aramaic in their liturgy. They face minority status persecution in the Middle East, yet Detroit, Michigan, serves as the largest diaspora hub outside of Iraq. The Detroit diaspora is a community built over decades of migration, seeking religious freedom. By 2017, thousands of Iraqi nationals lived in Michigan under orders of supervision. Many arrived in the 70s and 80s escaping conflict, integrated into Detroit, and held removal orders that were previously unenforceable. Prior to 2017, the status quo involved Iraq's non-cooperation in issuing travel documents for involuntary returnees. Individuals under orders of supervision reported regularly to ICE, held work permits, and lived productive lives. The geopolitical catalyst occurred in 2017 as part of travel ban negotiations. The administration sought to remove Iraq from the restricted list. Iraq agreed to accept deportees in exchange, effectively weaponizing the status of thousands of Iraqi nationals. On June 11, 2017, ICE coordinated a massive enforcement action across metropolitan Detroit. Approximately 114 Iraqi nationals, mostly Chaldean Christians, were arrested and taken from their homes and communities. Enforcement saw 114 initial arrests in Michigan, part of a nationwide action targeting over 1,400 Iraqi nationals. Religious faith offered no immunity from these arrests. The arrested individuals were permanent Detroit fixtures, averaging 20 to 30 years of U.S. residency, many with U.S. citizen children and spouses. Their criminal records were often minor, decades old, and already served. The mass arrests sparked legal resistance, leading to the case of Hamama versus Adducci, a battle championed by the ACLU for due process. Lead plaintiff Usama Hamama and others filed a class action lawsuit in June 2017. It argued for a stay of removal, allowing individuals to reopen cases, claiming mass deportation violated the Fifth Amendment due process clause. The core argument centered on persecution. Chaldeans faced genocide by ISIS, making return a, quote, high-risk conflict zone move. Their decades in the U.S. also meant a Westernized status, viewed with suspicion by militants and the Iraqi state. In 2017, ISIS remained a lethal threat to Christian minorities in the Nineveh Plains. The litigation argued that deportation was effectively a, quote, death sentence for those identified as Catholic. U.S. District Judge Mark Goldsmith issued a stay of removal in July 2017. The injunction prevented immediate deportation, stating that speedy deportation would cause irreparable harm and recognized the changed, dangerous conditions in Iraq. The Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals eventually overturned the class-wide injunction. They found that courts lacked authority for class-wide injunctions under U.S. Code and could not restrain immigration enforcement. This ended the broad stay, forcing individuals to fight cases one-on-one. Despite the Sixth Circuit ruling, the litigation achieved its primary goal, time. This strategic delay allowed hundreds to file motions to reopen in immigration court, present evidence of religious persecution, and many won the legal right to remain permanently in the U.S. Data shows the effectiveness of the legal challenge. 85% of cases were reopened, and 70% of those individuals were granted relief, with 40% of the original stay maintained through ongoing litigation. This section addresses the myth of Catholic immunity in immigration law, examining how faith factored into enforcement and public advocacy. Catholic leadership became vocal advocates. Archbishop Alain Vigneron criticized the administrative disregard for religious life, appealing to, quote, pro-life and religious freedom values. Parishes mobilized to support the families of the detained. The raids demonstrated that Catholic origin offered no protection from enforcement actions, showing policy prioritization over faith. The state was willing to return believers to zones of genocidal threat, despite religious objections. Community advocates testified that individuals were targeted due to a policy deal, ignoring the threat their Christian identity posed in their homeland. We now turn to the final resolution, the settlement milestone, which resolved Hamama versus Adducci in July 2024, 7 years after the initial raids. The 2024 settlement achieved several terms. Class members received protection from indefinite detention and were granted enhanced due process rights. The settlement also ensured that religious persecution risks must be considered in future ICE actions. A key victory was stopping open-ended custody. This limited how long ICE could detain Iraqi nationals without a clear deportation path, preventing the psychological limbo suffered by many families. Despite the legal wins, the trauma of the 2017 raids remains. This includes persistent fear of law enforcement, economic strain from years of legal fees, and secondary trauma for children who witnessed the arrests. Community resilience has grown through advocacy. The Chaldean Community Foundation expanded mental health and legal support services, and a robust network of specialized immigration attorneys was created. The geographic vulnerability remains, as the Nineveh Plains is the main destination for returnees. Political instability and sectarian militias continue to threaten minority Christians, despite ISIS's territorial defeat. The case offers policy lessons. Immigration enforcement should not be a, quote, bargaining chip in international relations. There is also a need for administrative transparency and clear guidelines for high-risk destinations for religious minorities. For Chaldeans, faith is central to their identity. The Hamama case highlighted that religious identity can be simultaneously a reason for deportation via policy deals and a reason for sanctuary via asylum law. In summary, the key findings include the 2017 policy deal with Iraq that triggered the mass arrests. Litigation like Hamama versus Adducci provided a critical buffer for case reviews. Although class-wide relief was limited, individual successes remained high, culminating in the 2024 settlement, which ends indefinite detention. Ultimately, justice for the Chaldean community was secured through the rigorous application of law and the resilience of a people who refused to be forgotten, not through any immunity based on faith. This concludes our video analysis of the immigration enforcement and legal defense concerning Iraqi Chaldean Catholics from 2017 to 2024. Here are the image sources used in the first part of this video. Continuing with the image sources for the central section of the video. And finally, the remaining image sources used throughout the video.